Okay, Neil, you know, I was away. I was in Europe, but it seemed all was fine and dandy in Portugal.
Except for the volumes, unfortunately. So, kind of like watching paint dry, but yeah, no major stories. A bit of a boring week, actually, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what have been good news stories. And in North Africa, things are really picking up. For Egypt, that Bourses gained about 1.2% in both local currency and dollar terms. Is it Orascom Construction?
Correct. The company has announced that they're going to embark on another share buyback program. At the beginning of the year, they bought back about 187,000 shares. That was in February, obviously before the nonsense came to the fore. And I mean, the name's jumped about 42% since then. This new share buyback starts tomorrow. Going to last about a month, where they're looking to buy about 440,000 shares. So obviously, you know, investors, retail investors, institutionals alike like the news, and the name's up 4% since that announcement as well. So it's looking quite good, yeah.
So all those political risk sentiments that were pervasive in North Africa, has it started to wane?
Well, look, it's going to take time before it completely disappears. I mean, it's still a very sensitive issue and whatnot, but it's looking a bit better. Since May, Egypt, the EGX city has done quite well. I mean, it's up quite decent amount. So people are still trading more lightly. Volumes are starting to pick up a little bit as well. So that's encouraging to see, yeah.
Okay, Malawi up 1.1% in US dollar terms. It says that Old Mutual was the driver of this market.
Correct, but their volumes were absolutely dire. So can't really read too much into it. I mean, it was up about 30 kwacha last week, 8.8%. So quite decent, but once again, low volume, so you know, we're not really.
I mean, low volumes, but we are seeing amendments, for instance, in things like the capital gains tax. We're seeing that the government's having a bit of a fallout with donors who account for about 40% of that budget. Has that made people a bit jittery?
Well, look, I think the brokers are kind of sceptical with regards to the capital gains tax. Initially, it was thought that it was only for if you held shares for less than a year, but now, irrespective of the holding period, you will have some capital gains tax. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming months. But obviously, you know, I mean, tax hurts investors, so it's not really favourable to the market from that point of view.
Okay, Botswana up 0.5% in dollar terms, 0.7% in pula terms. What's driving this market?
Well, there, once again, very low volumes. It was mainly by retail investors. Institutional investors seemed to be sitting on the sidelines in that market last week. Barclays, in particular, the financial stocks did quite well, but Barclays led the move higher there. There, once again, very low volumes. So it's no real news out in that market, in that country. The only stock that remains to see some decent volume go through looks to be Letshecho at this point, but the name looks to be fairly stable around the run 80 level, so not much going on there either.
All right, Zimbabwe obviously topical with the recent SADC meeting that's taken place, and it seems as though the media was expecting the facilitator and fellow SADC member states to rap President Mugabe over the knuckles to send a more decisive message. It didn't come through. We didn't even hear about indigenization policy, and yet this market's still performing.
Look, I mean, it's not shooting the lights out by any stretch of imagination. And people have been wanting Mugabe to say things and give political reform for a long time now. That's no surprise. So, look, I mean, it looked like it went okay at that meeting, and some things were said that investors wanted to hear. But their volumes as well. I mean, I think it's a seasonality thing at the moment across Africa, because as you see, in the rest of the developed world, that's where all the funds come from, all the inflows come from, and looks to have dried up. So we're not really reading too much into that move in Zim. We're waiting for volumes to pick up before we can really
I'm going to ask you about volumes in just a second. I mean, we also know that Zimbabwe's had a few issues with the liquidity in their commercial banks, and the fact that the central bank is not in a position to step in if indeed there needs to be some sort of bailout. The banks being drivers of investment in Zimbabwe. What's the horizon looking like there?
Well, there, I think, you know, for real investment to take place, we need to see some foreign direct investment take place. So I don't see it improving in the near term whatsoever until we see some decent political reforms in that country. So whether or not those the banks get you know, to be able to surge in investment, it's all up to the political reforms as far as we're concerned. Yeah.
Okay, let's explain to me the low volumes that we're seeing. In Europe, they explain it as you know, sell in May and go away.
Correct.
It's the summer season issue. Correct. How does that impact on us, if at all?
Well, look, I mean, for argument's sake, in the JSE, you see volumes drop from 1.7 billion to 1.5 billion. In Nigeria, you'll see volumes half, from 20 million to 10 million, like we're seeing at the moment. So it impacts it to a very, very large extent. You know, we kind of just have to hope something happens in Africa to kickstart it again over the next month or two. Otherwise, we kind of have to wait till the portfolio managers get back from holiday, sailing their ships in wherever they may be. You know, so yeah. bit worrying at this point.
All right, let's talk about the worst performers. Tanzania down 3.7% in dollar terms. What's going on with the currency?
That currency is extremely volatile and extremely illiquid at the best of times. So there you can't really read into that whatsoever because, I mean, it's not very tradable whatsoever. By the time the South African market closed on Friday night, the currency was back to where their market would have been flat for the week. So just one or two trades will make that currency move, 3.5%, 5%. So there it's just purely a liquid market.
The JSE also down, but tends to be tracking what's happening internationally, but also resources weighed down heavily on this bourse. Why is that?
Well, I think it's just the whole global play. As you know, a lot of our large resource companies that are listed on the JSE are also listed in some of the bourses across the world. So, if they take a bit of a pounding in Europe or wherever the case may be, we're definitely going to feel it over here. That's the reason behind that. It's purely a global risk aversion play at the moment, and definitely coming through into South Africa, yeah.
And Namibia is tracking the JSE.
Exactly.
Then.
I mean, you can't read into that. What happens to the JSE happens in America. I mean, Anglo-American's the biggest market, biggest share in the market in that market as well. So, yeah, I mean, look, just track it 100%.
And then Mauritius down 1.8%. It's been relatively flat in the 2000 region, the Semdex, over the last few weeks, and doesn't seem to be abating.
No, I think everyone's kind of just taking a whole steady approach at the moment with regards to that market. We saw a nice run up and then some profit taking. But if you look at it in local terms, in rupee terms, it was flat on the week. It was actually up 0.1%. So there, once again, a currency play. We saw the rupee come under a bit of pressure last week. No real news out on that. There, once again, another liquid currency market. So can't read into that.
Very briefly, we've run out of time. What's going on in Nigeria? There was so much fanfare about the elections being well conducted, the inauguration happening relatively well. We saw capitalization improving a little bit by the end of last week, but there's still some jitters about the rescued banks, it seems. Yes,
I mean, the deadline for recapitalization for those banks is in September. Now, obviously, it's with volumes looking like they are, they kind of have to go to the markets and find some capital, which they are struggling with at the moment. That's a bit of a worry, but we'll see how that plays out in the next month or two and hold thumbs.